On November 20th, 1820, the whaling ship Essex was 1,500 miles west of the Galapagos Islands when a colossal sperm whale, measuring nearly 85 feet long, charged the vessel. The first mate, Owen Chase, watched in disbelief as the whale deliberately rammed the ship, then circled and struck again. Within minutes, the Essex began to sink. 20 crewmen escaped into 3 small whaleboats with minimal provisions, barely enough for a week. They had no idea that their nightmare was only beginning. This is the true story of the Essex, the whaling ship that was sunk by its own prey, inspiring Herman Melville's Moby-Dick, a story of desperation, survival, and the darkest depths of human nature. The Essex was a 238-ton whaling ship out of Nantucket, Massachusetts, a hub of the global whaling industry. In the early 19th century, whale oil was the lifeblood of the Industrial Revolution, lighting lamps and lubricating machinery. Crews risked everything for profit, spending years at sea hunting sperm whales. Captain George Pollard Jr., only 29 years old, commanded the Essex on what was meant to be a routine voyage. The crew included experienced harpooners and green hands, all driven by the promise of a share in the profits. They set sail from Nantucket on August 12, 1819, with high hopes. No one imagined that their target would become their destroyer. The Essex departed with a crew of 21 men, including Captain Pollard, first mate Owen Chase, and second mate Matthew Joy. They sailed south, rounding Cape Horn, and entered the vast Pacific whaling grounds. For months, they hunted whales with moderate success, filling barrels with oil. The crew worked tirelessly, rowing small boats to harpoon whales, then towing them back to the ship for processing. The decks ran slick with blood and blubber. By November 1820, they had taken about 1,200 barrels of oil, a respectable haul, but they wanted more. The captain decided to push further west into uncharted waters, a decision that would seal their fate. Strange signs went unheeded. Days before the attack, the crew saw an unusually large sperm whale near the ship, but it dove and vanished. Some sailors felt a foreboding, but superstition was common. Captain Pollard had also received a warning from another whaling captain about dangerous waters. Yet the promise of rich whaling grounds outweighed caution. The Essex sailed on. On the morning of November 20th, lookouts spotted a pod of whales. 3 whaleboats launched, leaving the ship with a skeleton crew. Among the whales was a massive bull, later described as acting with rage. It was as if the creature knew its enemy. The whaleboats closed in on the pod. Harpooners threw their irons and one whale was struck. It thrashed and dragged a boat on a Nantucket sleigh ride across the waves. Meanwhile, the giant bull whale surfaced near the Essex. It was a monster, estimated at 85 feet, scarred from previous encounters. It swam calmly, then turned and deliberately swam straight for the ship. First mate Owen Chase, left in charge, watched in horror. The whale struck the port side with tremendous force, shaking the entire vessel. Chase ordered the pumps, but the whale circled and came again. The second strike was devastating. The whale hit the bow, crushing the timbers and opening a massive hole. Water poured in. The Essex began to list. Chase shouted for the whaleboats to return, but it was too late. The ship was sinking fast. In a desperate scramble, the crew saved what little they could. Some bread, water casks, navigational tools, and a few muskets. They abandoned ship into 3 leaky whaleboats, the same ones they used to hunt whales. Captain Pollard, returning from his boat, saw his command going down. The whale that had been their prey had become their executioner. The whaleboats were overcrowded and poorly equipped. Each measured about 28 feet long, with a mast and sail. They had minimal food, 200 pounds of bread, a few gallons of water, and some Galapagos tortoises. The crew faced a terrible choice: sail east to South America against the wind, or west to the Society Islands, a longer but more favorable route. They chose east, a decision that would prove fatal. Days turned into weeks. Rations were cut to a few ounces of bread and a pint of water per day. Men began to die. The first to go was second mate Matthew Joy. His body was committed to the sea. Desperation set in. Men drank seawater, went mad, and died. The survivors resorted to cannibalism, drawing lots to see who would be killed to feed the others. In one boat, a young man named Owen Coffin, the captain's cousin, drew the fatal slip. He was shot and eaten. The horror continued. By the time rescue arrived, only 8 of the original 20 remained alive. They were found by the whaling ship Dauphin, emaciated and sucking the marrow from the bones of their dead comrades. The rescuers were horrified by what they saw. The Essex had been gone for 90 days. The survivors, Captain Pollard, First Mate Chase, and 3 others, were taken aboard the Dauphin. They were treated with compassion, but the psychological scars ran deep. Pollard later returned to Nantucket, but never fully recovered. He took command of another whaling ship, but it was wrecked in a storm, and he was branded as unlucky. He spent his remaining years as a night watchman. Chase wrote a harrowing account of the ordeal, which Herman Melville read years later. Melville met Chase's son and was inspired to write Moby-Dick, though the novel fictionalized much of the story. The true horror of the Essex was far worse. The story of the Essex remains a cautionary tale of hubris and survival. It highlights the dangers of the whaling industry, which pushed men to the edge of the world for profit. The sinking itself was unprecedented, a whale deliberately attacking a ship. But the true legacy is the human capacity for endurance and the dark choices made in extremis. The Essex lives on in literature, but its real story is one of tragedy. Subscribe to Doomed Expeditions for more harrowing tales of exploration and survival. Hit the bell icon to join us on our next journey into the abyss.